guest line. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes, I had previously submitted a story relative to the seductive ghost.
Oh, yes.
And I think that you were going to get back with me.
I was and omitted you. I'm sorry. And you had a sort of a... we hadn't finished. You had a poke in the eye.
Well, she had appeared to me, and then I had approached her, taken a step or two forward, and then she poofed, vanished, and then I had a very sharp pain in my left eye. I went back to bed. Subsequent to that, years had gone by. In the early 60s, I had developed eye problem. I had to get glasses, so I went to the ophthalmologist, and he was examining my eyes, and he noticed that I had a strange geometric mark in my left pupil. He had never seen anything quite like that in a child before, so he had asked me, how I got that, and of course I was somewhat hesitant to relate anything as to the details of that whole, incident. But it turns out that 50 years later, I still have the mark of this particular ghost as evidenced in my pupil in the form of a triangle. I had LASIK surgery about 4 years ago, and once again, I was examined by an ophthalmologist, and they were scrutinizing the triangle in my left pupil, wanting to know what it was.
Sure.
But that's it. Basically, I don't dwell on the thing, but for some reason, when she exited her dimension, she apparently went through my eye and left a mark.
I appreciate the story.
Thank you.
Thank you, and take care. So that's another dimension entirely, and that is ghost stories where there is something that happened to you, some physical something that happened to you. In that case, his marred eye as a real thing for people to examine and see, and he knew when it happened, and it was a good-looking ghost. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I actually called a few minutes ago. I apologize about that mishap right there. What I had to say before...
No. The reason that I didn't allow you on the air is because you used language that was inappropriate on the air. So one more chance, you do it again, you're out of here forever. Eternity. All right?
Ain't gonna happen again. What happened was the phone had rang at 4 in the morning, rang one time, and I believe the ghost... have you ever heard of ghost haunting people in their dreams?
Well, I don't know. What's the deal with it ringing one time? So
it rang one time, and through the speakerphone thing, there was a really weird voice, and I couldn't make out exactly what it was saying, but it sounded almost like go to sleep.
Well, I get those all the time, though. Usually...
at first I thought it was my friend messing around.
Well, usually it's somebody trying to sell me something. I mean, how do you know...
At 4 in the morning?
Oh, they'll call. Not 4
in the morning, and not only that, we checked the caller ID. It happened 3 times that night, right after where my friend had gotten up, walked out in the other room. He thought I was messing around. I'm like, no. And I thought he was messing around. No, the phone wasn't in their room. The phone wasn't nowhere. In the morning, the phone ended up being found in the bathroom. So that's weird right there. We checked the caller ID. There was no recollection of a call coming in at that point in time in the morning or anything. And it happened 3 times. A very weird voice. I guess like also my friend's girlfriend that lives here said the ghost is like she's seen it before. A hag. Old lady?
Did you say a hag?
A hag. That's what she described it as to me, and it almost sounded like, go to sleep.
Go to sleep. Well, then that's what you should have done. Headed for the sack. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Me?
You?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hi.
my name's Tim. I'm calling from Oklahoma, but I'm listening to a station out of San Antonio.
All right, Tim. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, this story begins in a hospital, actually, before the ghost, if you can call it that, came about. But my dad died about 15 years ago, and the night before he died, some people told me to tell him that they had been to the hospital but hadn't been in to see him because they felt like they needed to just keep it together and be support for the family and stuff.
Sure.
And The next morning, he died, and immediately after that, just right at the same time, a clock stopped in their house and would not start back up again. A couple of months later, I was on a train from St. Louis to Minneapolis, which was, several hundred miles away from where my dad died.
Right.
And when my dad had been in the hospital, he was in a coma for about a week. I kept meeting people that he worked with who were coming by the hospital, and they kept telling me, your dad is really proud of you. He talks about you all the time. And that phrase, your dad is really proud of you, is important. Because several months later, when I'm on this train, I went to the car behind the one we were riding in, which they had cleared out the car because they were going to drop it off overnight. But I had to go back there to use the bathroom because the bathroom in our car didn't work. There was one man back there.
Right.
And a very old black man with white hair. And as I passed him, we made eye contact, and he said, I talked to your father the other day. He's really proud of you.
Just out of the blue, he said that.
Just out of the blue, yeah. And so, this was in the middle of the night. I was about half asleep, so I didn't really think a whole lot about it. And as I got back to the car, I told the steward in the car I was riding in about it. Said, there's an elderly gentleman back there who seems a bit confused. Can you go back and check on him? And so the
we've got less than a minute here.
Okay, the steward goes back there and comes back up a couple minutes later by himself, just looking at me like, "What are you talking about?"
There was nobody there.
Nobody. So I think I got a message from beyond.
It sounds very much like you did.
Yeah.
All right, sir. I appreciate your call.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. You're listening to Ghost AM. We invite your ghost stories. If you had something really scary happen to you, then we've got the phone lines. Let's you and I rock. This is Ghost AM.
In the cool of the evening when everything is getting kind of groovy, I call you up and ask you if you'd like to go with me and see a movie. First you say no, you got some plans for the night, and then you stop and say, alright, love is kinda crazy with a spooky little girl like you. You always keep me guessing, I never seem to know what you are thinking. And if a fella looks at you, it's for sure your little eye will be a-winking. I get confused 'cause I don't know where I stand, and then you smile and hold my hand. Love is kind of crazy with a spooky little girl like you.
Wanna take a ride? Call Art Bell from west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at area code 775-727-1222. Or call the wildcard line at 775-727-1295. To talk with Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. 3. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
It's Ghost to Ghost all night long tonight. Good evening, everybody. If you've got a really good story, we've got the telephones, even though we appear to have a slight malfunction in the long-distance lines right now. We'll work with it, and we'll keep taking your stories. So lay heavily into the first-time caller line, the wild card line, and you'll do just fine for a little while here. But they are having a typical Halloween kind of problem on long-distance lines. That's just the way it goes. Expect these kinds of troubles on nights like this. Top of the evening to you all. As we continue with Ghost to Ghost. We'll see how we do here with regard to whether we go 5 hours or not. I'm not sure about these telephones, but we'll make a good Halloween try. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hey, is this me?
Yeah, well, only you know that for certain, but it sounds like you. It sounds just like you, actually.
Well, I've been listening for a long time. I want to thank you and George for getting me through the night. I drive a truck. I'm sitting on the side of the road just outside Gallup, New Mexico. My name's Meade.
Well, all right. Welcome to the program, and you're very welcome. Happy to keep you awake. Awake is our job.
Yeah, I'll do a good job some nights.
So, what's up?
Okay, real quick. About 1993, my grandfather had emphysema, and he was sick for a long time. And I was praying, that he wouldn't pass, and this, that, and everything. Well, he did. And I got real angry and had a fit there where I was cursing God and this, that, and the other thing. And during that time, my mother was just distraught. I mean, it almost destroyed her. Mm-hmm. And every time I seen her, she's upset. And then I seen her, at one time, and she's fine. She's happy, back to herself again. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And she said that she was sleeping in the house where they lived in Tennessee. And it was still dark outside, and she woke up with a light, and my grandfather was standing there, and he told her, Kay, you grieved so long, stop it. I'm in a glorious, glorious place. I wouldn't leave, if I could.
Yes.
And that calms her down. Well, that made me mad for two reasons. One, I didn't believe it, and the other one was that, why didn't he come see me? I'm just as messed up as she was. And then I got to think about it, and I was joking with people, well, the reason he wouldn't is because I'm famous with my friends for being spooky. If you can open a door, they got hobbies of scaring me. And so I'd probably just leave him whatever room he was in and be gone.
You're sounding a little spooky now. Your cell phone's breaking up, so.
Okay. Anyway, I was sleeping, and I dreamed about him. And for the time he was for like 2 years, my grandmother had paid to have a lake dug on their farm. And she had sunk all this money into digging a blooming lake, and it would never hold water. And so when I dreamed about him, give you the short version, we went to the lake, and it was full of water. And the following day, I went to my grandmother's house because it freaked me out. And sure enough, the doggone thing, and it hadn't rained, Art, in like 6 months, and the thing was just full of water. And, I mean, it cured me. It changes the way you believe things and what you believe, doesn't it? Well, I mean,
observe that.
It's just inexplicable. I mean, there was no rain, and for 2 years it would rain. And
I'm with you. It's quite clear. It was another message. Well, I don't know if that's enough. I too had a message, and I think that was a message from my father. But I'm the kind of person who just requires this incredible, unobtainable, ironclad proof, and I haven't had it yet. But that's why I listen to these stories with intrigue, because there are so many of them. It's so common. There's got to be something to it, don't you think? Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Hi, this is Joan in Alexandria, Virginia.
Hey, Joan.
And I'm listening on, I don't know what it's called anymore, but it's 570 AM.
570 AM in Virginia somewhere. Okay.
Well, it actually comes out of Bethesda, Maryland, which is on the north end of Washington, D.C., and I'm on the south end.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, I'm calling to tell you about a friend's house in North Carolina was built about 15 years ago, right out on the Outer Banks, one dune away from the ocean.
Yeah, Hurricaneville.
Yes. And we've known these people for a long time. They have a very large, multi-generational family, and they're always inviting other people to come and stay there. And so we went down one time to visit, and she said, "Now, I want to warn you before you come that we do have a ghost, or multiple ghosts."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, great. I thought that was super. I have my chance." And she told us that there was a woman who walks through one certain bedroom who wears a long, body-fitting dark vest with many buttons down the front, and she has a white blouse underneath it with long, loose sleeves. And that one time she walked in the room, and somebody had put a crib with a baby there, and she walked right through the crib and the baby, and the mother was just horrified, took the child and went to a motel for the night, never stayed in the house again.
A normal reaction, I think.
The night we were there, my friend's giant 6'4" brother had slept out on the porch because the house was really crowded. And he came running in the middle of the night, terrified, because of all the boot stamping out on the porch. There were all these loud footprints. So the other aspect of this was that in the wintertime, when neither she nor her family members are there is one permanent family just on the other side of some bushes, two houses, the length of a normal two-house away. So it's maybe 100 feet away.
Right.
And they complained to her one time because of all the party noise all winter. And yet they didn't know who was staying there, so they were concerned that someone was breaking into the house because there were lights all night, and their lights would move from one room to another as though people were not using the electricity, which was turned off for the winter, so they were using candles or oil lights or something, and that there was all this raucous partying going on all the time. So finally my friend contacted not an exorcist, but a psychic who lived down in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And over the years, she got to know the locals, and she had heard about this woman, contacted her, and she came to visit the house and said that there was a shipwreck on that particular site, and that when they constructed the house, it had dug into it, and the ghosts were all disturbed, but they figured, well, if you put a house here, we'll just live in it. But that they were actually shipwreck victims. So the exorcist or the psychic, I don't know whether she did magic, I don't know what sort of things she did, but she asked them to leave, that it was alarming renters, and the family didn't mind, and they accepted it, but would they please leave?
Did it work?
Yes.
They left?
Uh-huh.
So,
and the neighbors said they now see lights in the wintertime, in the dead of winter, when there's no one else around, for miles, because this is just this narrow.
So you mean they still occupy it when nobody's there?
But not their house.
But not the house.
But they see lights.
Just in the area?
Yes,
so
on a
in
nearby dune, there are still these little flashing lights as though people are having a party, and they hear laughter and singing.
That. All right. Oh, well, that's pretty weird. That's another. So, in other words, you could request that a spirit or a ghost that's occupying the place of its death leave the place of its death and have that happen, but have them stay close by. So, what do we have here? Polite ghosts? Or spirits that have to follow the words of the living? Not sure, but interesting. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello. Hello there.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Michael.
Michael, you're going to have to speak up good and loud, Michael.
I better go on another phone here.
Yeah, we don't have a great connection, so.
Okay. Is that better?
Oh, that's much better. Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had an experience about 14 years ago, and I sent you an email about it. I really don't want to say where exactly
Okay.
it took place because I remembered a few things about the situation afterwards that make it still kind of scary. What happened was there was a period. I'm very nervous right now.
Oh, well, just take a deep breath.
Okay, I've been taking lots of them.
Don't worry about it. You're just talking to me.
Well, you'll find out once I tell you the story.
Sure.
For about 7 or 8 months, maybe 9 months, I had these dreams, kind of like dreams, sometimes waking dreams.
Yes.
And I found myself thinking about places, kind of like in tropical areas. And sometimes during the dreams, I would ask whoever was giving me these dreams where it was. And the voice told me in my dream, it's near Papua New Guinea.
Uh-huh.
I can't tell you where. So what happens is about 8 months later, some big changes happen in my life. And I decide, well, it's time to take that trip. So I'm heading out of the West Coast. And this is the part I forgot to tell you about in the email. I'm waiting for my flight. And all of a sudden, where I'm sitting, these two characters become apparent to me. And, you've heard of Men in Black?
Yes.
Well, this was a man and a woman in black.
Okay.
Now, the man was like anything you'd see in a boardroom somewhere. He was older, and he was standing talking to the woman. Now, what happened was the man turned, talked to the woman. She had hair cut straight across the front of her forehead, down the sides, and around the back of her head. She was dressed all in black, and as she walked down the street, people would stop and notice because she was very strange. And she had a book open, and she was writing, I believe, in right to left in the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Right to left. Okay.
Yeah. Well, something very old. Not many people do that except in certain parts of the world.
That's right.
And then the man looked at the woman. He came over to me, and he stood right beside me. And he stood right beside me within arm's reach and stared at me, stared straight down. I didn't want to look at him because, I didn't want a confrontation. I just thought, strange people, right?
Yes.
So he goes back, and he's talking to the woman. And she looks up in the air, and she talks to him, and then he turns and he looks at me like he wishes I was somewhere else or something. He's not liking me at all. And
okay, we don't have a lot of time here.
Okay.
So.
Well, what happens is I wind up getting on the plane, and I head off into the Pacific. I get off of this plane, and the spirit that had been talking to me through my dreams, it kind of leads me up into this valley. I'm walking through this valley, and I'm going through where all of the orchards are.
So you went, in other words, you went to the place of your dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I thought it was my dream. And I was thinking I would come to this place. I'm walking through the orchard. It's a full moon, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps behind me. And I turn around just briefly to look, and there's nothing there. So I thought maybe it was a piece of fruit falling or something. So I walk into this open area, and I hear more footsteps. And then I look around and make sure, and there's nothing behind me. So I head up to the end of this valley, and I'm thinking, well, this dream, I'm going to come to it, and maybe these people that I'm seeing in this dream are going to be there, and I'll be safe.
Uh-huh.
I get up to the top of the valley, and I realize something's wrong. And I go to turn around, and all of a sudden, this black net comes over top of me.
A black net?
Yeah. And this thing can read my mind. I don't know what it is, and it starts to squeeze. And it's accusing me of all of the maybe negative things that have happened in my life. It seems to know this. And I know that I got to get out of this place. There's something wrong. And the only thing I can think, I can't breathe, I can't see. Like, it was a full moon when I walked in. And then it's like I have this thick black net over top of me, and I can't see the stars or anything. I can barely see the moon.
Okay, only a minute left.
I'm heading out of the valley, and I look back, and this thing, I just warded off, and I called to every available spirit to help me. And finally, this thing leaves me alone. And what happens is I went through all of that, and I continued the travels. And I traveled for about, six weeks after this point. I wound up at this place close to Papua New Guinea through the Pacific. This family took me in, helped me get my ticket back to come back to the United States. They felt really sorry for me because I couldn't be here for Halloween.
Yeah.
And when I left it was the Philippines I left. I wound up coming back to the United States, and it was the day before. It was actually Halloween. And I got to spend Halloween with my family.
Excellent.
And what happened is, through the whole thing, I found out that, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in my religion or whatever faith was.
Yes.
But I found out that there's spirit out there that takes care of me, and it protects me. And
it throws black nets over you, too. So that's an interesting concept, though, to try and locate. Have you ever had a repetitive dream? A dream that keeps coming back to you and coming back to you and coming back to you until you have the opportunity, which probably feels like deja vu at the time, to actually be at the location of your dream, to actually find the location of your dream, even if it would be as remote as New Guinea, for example. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, sir. What is your name?
Mike.
Hey, Mike. Welcome.
How you doing? I'm out here in L.A.
Yes, sir.
Well, here's a ghost story for you.
Fire away.
When I was around 14 years old, I was home alone, and we had a pool table in a big pool room in the house. And I was playing late at night. It must have been like at 11:30, something like that. And I finished up the game, and we had a wall rack that we would put all the balls and the pool cues and the sticks and everything on there that would hold it on the wall. So I did that, and I was really meticulous because the house was haunted. So I would always make things almost like an obsessive compulsive. I'd put everything in an exact specific place so I knew where it was.
I do that anyway.
Yeah. Because everything was always changing. So I put everything back, went to my room, and was getting ready to go to sleep, and I hear a great big crashing out in the room. So I run out through two other rooms to get to that room, and a pool cue was lying on the pool table. Another pool cue was on the ground. There was the sound of a ball going down the chutes, because the pool table was one of those kind that had chutes in it, so that all the balls ended up at the front of the table.
I have one just like it, yeah.
Yeah. So I heard a ball running down that, and there was the white ball, the cue ball, was banking off one of the felt edges of the table, like somebody had taken a shot and put down the pool cue. So when I go to the front of the table to get the ball out of there, I noticed that it's the 8 ball. So that was kind of freaky. So then, after that, I'm freaked out because I'm thinking, oh my God, this is an 8 ball bad luck. So I'm looking around, and I just feel this immense need to get out of the house. And I ran to the front door, but the front door wouldn't open.
All right, hold it right there. You run to the front door, but the front door won't open. That's good. We'll pick it up right there.
love, what a tale my thoughts could tell. Just like an old-time movie about a ghost from a wishing well, in a castle dark or a fortress strong, with chains upon my feet. You know that ghost is me, and I will never be set free as long as I'm a ghost you can't see.
To reach Art Bell in the Kingdom of Nye, from west of the Rockies, dial 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at 1-775-727-1222. Or use the wildcard line at 1-775-727-1295. To reach Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the Premier Radio Network.
It sure is, and we have a caller hanging, as it were, so let's go right back to him. You're back on the air again, sir.
Okay.
All right, continue.
So, we left off at the front door. I couldn't open the door.
Yes.
And it's a pretty big door, and it's well balanced, and it was really easy to open. You know, you didn't have to do a lot of effort. So the fact that I couldn't open it was alarming me because I had it unlocked and ready to go.
Of course.
And then all of a sudden, it opened. It pushed me back. Like I said, it was a heavy, big door.
All by itself.
All by itself, and that really freaked me out because it was almost like it was trying to fling me into the next room because there was a room right next to the entryway of that house.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, so that kind of was weird. So I pulled myself around the door and kind of threw myself out onto the porch, and the porch was kind of enclosed, so I ended up banging into this wall that was kind of on the other side of the porch, and then I ran down the porch over to a neighbor's house that was right next door and asked them if I could stay there until my parents got home. Mm-hmm. And that door, after I had exited the house, it slammed on itself. I mean, it just like slammed shut with a thud. And I was just kind of shocked, and I ran over there. My parents came back, and what was weird about that is that they didn't think anything was too weird about that when I told them. But years later, I would find out that my dad had experienced some strange things, and my brother had experienced some strange things there.
Well, you know, people tend not to tell each other about this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't. It's not something you talk about, unless I guess you're asked to.
Yeah.
As we do when we do these kind of programs. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much, and take care, and we'll be right back with more Ghost to Ghost. We don't need no stinking phones. We'll do 5 hours anyway. Where there's a will, there's a way. We'll do it anyway. This is Ghost to Ghost, and we'll make it a special 5-hour night. How about that? Huh? We'll continue to tell ghost stories. We want, of course, the very best, the very scariest stories that you can muster up. And with that in mind, you are on the air. Good morning. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your first name?
Dwayne.
Dwayne. Okay, Dwayne, welcome. Where are you?
Well, I used to live in Bend, Oregon. I'm down in Applegate, Oregon now.
All right, but Oregon.
Yeah, I'm an artist, and I used to travel to the big art shows.
Oh.
And when I would take off and leave for 2 or 3 weeks, I had a neighbor that was in his 70s at the time. His name was Tony, and Tony would feed my cats, watch the house, and make sure everything was okay. Well, this went on for years and years, and one night I came back and sat down in my black chair and just relaxing, playing with the cats, and the rocking chair next to me started to rock.
Tony.
And Tony started to materialize.
Started to materialize?
Yeah, and Tony and I always talked about the hereafter and reincarnation. And
now, Tony was, I take it, passed on. at this point.
Yeah, Tony was always telling me he was going to stick around for a while and watch people.
Yeah, I wonder if we have that choice. So there was Tony's. Did he materialize completely or what?
Quite completely, and I reached over and shook his hand, and I said, how on earth did you do that, Tony?
Yes.
He says, ectoplasm. He says, this was really, really hard to do. And he said, I had a message. I want you to do something for me.
You're not pulling my leg.
No.
He said ectoplasm, it's really hard to do.
Well, Tony had a real sense of humor.
Obviously.
Laugh constantly. And he was laughing just like Tony was in real life. And I said, Tony, what happened? How you do that? And he says, didn't you hear? I'm dead. And I said, what do you mean you're dead? You're sitting right here. He said, no. He says, I'm dead. But I told you I was going to stick around. And he wanted me to tell his wife that everything was okay, that he was just as happy and alive as he was in real life.
Yeah, right. And through all this, how are you holding up? I mean...
Oh, I just thought it was cool. These things have happened to me over the years. I'd be driving home.
So it didn't bother you?
No, one thing that happened in Santiam Pass quite often, there was always a runner, and you could slow down, go up next to the runner, and look at him and say hello, and he'd fade away.
On the highway, huh?
On the highway, and there was also a beautiful blonde gal that would always be walking the highway, and you'd stop for her, she'd get in the back seat, and you'd start to drive off, and she'd fade out.
And she'd fade out. These stories are rife in Oregon. I mean, they're really all over the place in Oregon. Oregon is famous for those kinds of stories, especially the hitchhikers that suddenly disappear. There are even hitchhikers who tell drivers stories of coming Armageddon and really awful things and then disappear. A lot of those stories recently. First-time caller line, you're on the air, Ghost to Ghost AM. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Jerry. Well, since I was a kid, I've seen several different things. I guess I've been kind of sensitive to it.
Uh-huh.
And actually, it's kind of funny is that some of the spirits have told me that all they really want is to be seen and to be acknowledged.
I take it that's a problem on the other side, that you're not seen, you're not acknowledged, and that must be rather frustrating for the people on the other side.
Yeah, it seems if you can see them or feel them, that you become a magnet for them.
That would also make sense. I mean, if they finally find somebody who can either sense them or know they're there and, is acknowledging them, giving them feedback, something they don't have on the other side, then naturally they're going to be drawn to that person.
Well, unfortunately, I had a very bad one that stuck to me and stayed with me for several years and occasionally still does little things to let me know that he's still around.
Like what?
Well, moving things around in front of me. Sometimes I'll see a shadow, like a shadow person.
Yes.
Or out of the darkness, so I'll hear him call my name.
And so you know it's this person? Same person?
Actually, he gave himself a name. He said his name is Tommy.
Tommy?
Yeah. And the way I met him was a long time ago. It was probably about 10 years ago. I was at a friend's house, and one of them decided that they wanted to play the Ouija board. And he made it out of a piece of paper. So that goes to show you it's not the game. It's the people.
Not. It's your will, your wish, your intent. It's not the thing. All you've got to do is sit there and wish it to be, and the door opens.
Yeah, exactly. You call them, and they'll come.
Yeah.
But one thing that he did do that isn't normally on the board is he put a pentagram on there. I had never seen one of those before. I never seen a Ouija board, so I didn't know that wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh, no, bad idea.
Yeah, I found out later that pretty much means you're calling evil spirits.
And along came Tommy.
And and at first he said he was a small child that was killed in a car wreck in the 40s. His uncle was drunk and he hit a tree and he went through the windshield and cut his neck and he bled to death.
That's quite a story. You're saying he lied?
Yeah, he told me he lied later. And so anyways, he tells us this whole story about how he died. And at first he was really nice and we were just asking different questions and then he started to get meaner. And we started asking him, are you really a small boy? And finally he said, no, I'm not. Are you stupid? And started, insulting everyone. And some of the girls started getting scared, and so they were telling the people that were touching the little ring to tell him to leave. And he started saying, I can do whatever I want, and I won't leave unless I want to. Mm-hmm. And so they got pushier and pushier, and finally he said, you'll be sorry. And so that night, they split their different ways. And two of the girls on their way home, the girl driving looks in the rearview mirror, and she sees a shadow person sitting in the back seat. And so they're freaking out. She drives as quickly as she can home. They run inside. It actually was walking back and forth on the porch, and they could see it like a 3-dimension shadow. And then
well, see, all right. I don't know if there's more to it, but I mean, that's the lesson. These things walk through. You open the door, they walk through, and they can be with you for years.
Yeah. And see, out of all the people there, it stayed with me.
Yeah, I got that. How old are you now?
I'm 28.
And 28, and it still is with you.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me as much, but that night, one of the people at that house happened to be my girlfriend, and she called me crying, saying something was scratching her wall. I thought, well, maybe it was a mouse in the wall just making a little scratching noise, and I heard a loud scratch. So I said, I'm coming over to pick you up. I'll be right there. So I turn on my light, and I get up, and I hear something over my head, and I look up, and the chains from the fan are just swinging from side to side, hitting the fan.
Yes.
I thought, oh my gosh, what do we do? So and then I hear something behind me. I turn around, and the cord for the blinds, it's pulling up into the air and then dropping and hitting the blinds, and it's just pulling up and dropping, pulling up and dropping. So I know that we did something really bad.
Yes, you did.
I went over there to pick her up, and on her wall, the scratches started at the ceiling, and they went all the way down to the pillow right by her head. But they actually went through the paint, the spackling, and through the sheetrock into the middle where the chalk was at.
Let me tell you something. You need to get some help.
No, it's pretty much left me, as long as I don't bother it or encourage it, it doesn't seem to bother me.
When you least expect it. I mean, good luck to you, but I'm telling you right now, unless you have solid evidence, this thing really has left. Believe me, it is still with you. It's still there. And whatever it was you let through, it was definitely not good. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Let me get away from my wife's alarm clock.
Oh, yes.
Well, first off, let me say, good to hear you on the air.
Thank you. Where are you?
We're in Port St. Lucie, Florida here.
All right. And your first name?
And I had to get up away from that clock.
Sounds like you're...
Yeah, I've got a bad back, so I'm up late at nights.
Oh, I know all about that, yeah.
Oh, I know you do.
What's your first name?
Aaron.
Aaron, okay.
Yep, KG4YQK.
Oh, you're a ham. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Look forward to hearing you on the air.
Thank you.
My sister and I, when we were kids, we had kind of a dysfunctional family, obviously. And
I'm beginning to think all of America is dysfunctional.
I think so.
You know?
I don't think there's any Ward Cleavers out there.
That's right.
So, for the longest time, strange things used to happen in the house. My sister, when we used to come home from school, used to literally come home and pet the porch and go, nice house, because she was scared to go inside.
Sure.
And we'd be sitting in the living room watching TV, and you'd look over, and all of a sudden one of those little pictures, that you would sit on the nightstand or something like that, would just kind of go pew, and flip up in the air and then land on the ground and land straight up. That was freaky enough.
Of course.
My 13th birthday, I decided, we're getting ready to my mother was going to throw me a party. We're going to have a few friends over. And so I, ran, took a shower, whatever, and my bedroom was on the top floor, along with my sister. And nobody was upstairs. And so I went to cut on the light in the hallway to run up the steps.
Right.
And light went out. Poof. And I said, oh, man. So I'm 13. think we just got through watching Jaws, earlier that week. And I ran into the kitchen to get the flashlight, which was up over the counter, and had my towel on. Of course, there's a window there, and the towel fell off, and I'm trying to reach for the flashlight. Of course, Mom didn't like that, so get up here and change. So I go running up the steps, and I get all the way up to the top of the steps, and a big sweeping arm, to reach in to cut my light on in the bedroom. Boom, I hit something midstream. I'm thinking, I know there's nothing there because it's just empty space there.
What do you mean you hit something? Like what?
I ran into something like a being or a person with my hand. It stopped my arm in mid stride.
Uh-huh.
And so at that point, I knew something wasn't right. And I looked up, and I saw the only thing I can describe it as, it was like, if you ever heard of looking at terror, these yellow eyes had to be a demon, because all I could see was terror. You're looking up at it, right?
Yes.
And so I'm screaming like a banshee at the top of these steps.
This sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, except I lived it. And so then I jumped down the entire flight of steps, and then with one more jump, I jump across the living room floor.
Yes.
And my mother, of course, the hair on the back of her neck stands up. She goes running upstairs with a butcher knife out of the kitchen, going to try to get whatever's getting at her kid.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the point of it. I got to thinking about it. And I used to read the Bible a lot, and I used to, and I still do, by the way. But I always kind of admired the gentleman who had the fight with Satan in the graveyard. Knocked him over a gravestone.
Uh-huh.
And I got to thinking about it. I had kind of wanted to do the same thing. And
do you think you?
I think I brought that on myself.
That's what I was going to ask. You think you brought it on yourself?
I did.
I think. Well, have you been listening to these Ouija stories?
Yeah, that's a very bad idea.
Yeah, as I keep saying, it's not the board.
No.
It's the intent and the wish. And you had all of that and didn't need a board and brought it on yourself, didn't you?
That's right. The mind is a gateway, and be careful how you work it.
Oh, it certainly is. Thank you, brother.
Look forward to hearing you on the land.
Take care. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. This is Robin. I'm from Buffalo, New York. Well, actually, Kenmore is a suburb.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, and great to hear on the air and stuff like that.
Thank you.
At my house, we've had a number of events happen over the past few years. Most of them are pretty benign, occasionally just irritating.
Yes.
The creepiest thing, though, I think that ever happened, and I'm not sure if this is a ghost or a poltergeist or exactly what this was, but when I was about 12 years old, I was doing my laundry like I normally do, downstairs in the basement, sitting there folding towels. Our house is fairly old. It was built in the 20s, not horribly old, but enough that we have to have a jury-rigged clip lamp over the washing machine.
Oh, yes, those little lamps that have little clips on them, and you just clip them on something. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you just clip them up. They're both cheap and that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
I'd already been down there for a while, just doing my thing. And all of a sudden, I just noticed, I'm like, there's a buzzing noise coming from this lamp, which of course was on. And I kind of stopped and looked up at it, and as I started to watch it, the noise started getting louder and louder.
Mm-hmm.
And as that happened as well, it began to shake.
Oh?
Now, over the next few seconds, it sort of built up to a crescendo. And by the end of this, it was just violently shaking.
Violently shaking.
And letting off this, you'd see it. It was just like this, it was blurring a little bit, like it was just really shaking. And then when it really kind of reached, I suppose, a fever pitch, all of a sudden a flame shot out of it.
Oh?
About a foot. Immediately after the flame shot out, a black blob object, probably the size of the old 50-cent, pieces of money, maybe a little bigger, came flying straight at my head.
At your head?
Yeah, and my first instinct was just duck.
Oh, my instinct would be duck and run.
And I ducked, and I had my head on for a second, and I went, what was that?
Yes.
I probably thought it a little more colorfully than that, but, just, what was that? Got up, looked around. First thing I did was I spun around, and I looked to see, is there, any dead moths or anything around? I didn't see any insects, nothing whatsoever. Then the next thing I thought was, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta turn the light off. Maybe the light just like burst or something.
Yeah.
Turn the lamp off. It was, kind of hot. Couldn't really, touch it, but I kind of carefully turned around, looked at it. Bulb hadn't broke or anything like that. Turned it back on. It worked fine. No buzzing noise, no nothing.
What do you think you met up with?
I really, honestly, I'd love to say it was a ghost, it was a poltergeist, but I just don't know.
You just don't know.
Obviously, it wasn't particularly nice.
No.
It wasn't very friendly. I mean, we've had, where my father and I have heard something, heard a mumbling voice at the same time in different areas of the house.
Gotcha. Listen, we've got to go.
All right.
We're out of time, but thank you very, very much for the story. All right, we are going to go into hour 5. I'm just going to go right on ahead and extend the program. Why not? You're listening to Halloween 2003. This is Ghost to Ghost AM, and I'm Art Bell.
Sight, sound, smell or touch, there's something inside that we need so much. The sight of a touch or the scent of a sound or the strength of an oak roots deep in the ground. The wonder of flowers to be covered and then to burst up through tarmac to the sun again, or to fly to the sun without burning a wing, to lie in a meadow and hear the grass sing, to have all these things in our memories hoard, and to use them to help us to find.
Wanna take a ride? Well, call Art Bell from west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at 1-775-727-1222. The wildcard line is open at 1-775-727-1295. And to reach Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the Premier Radio Networks.
Ghost to Ghost AM. Good morning, everybody. Soaring into hour 5 of Ghost to Ghost AM. Why not? Let's do one more hour, shall we? It's your show, your stories. And, I don't know. For the rest of you who aren't calling in, those who aren't getting through, sit back, listen to these stories, and decide in your own mind, all religion, everything else aside, if what you're hearing doesn't go an awful long way toward definitely hinting, whether you've had the experience or not, that there's really something happening out there after death. There's really something waiting for us on the other side. It won't be all over. Not all over. Just the physical part of it. As you lie there in the dark, or probably semi-dark, listening to all this, you really have to start thinking about it a little bit, thinking about the reality of physical death and what may come after. And indeed, as you listen, how can you deny that something must be there? It may or may not be to your liking, but there must be something there. And good morning, you're on the air, Coast to Coast AM, or Coast to Ghost AM, as it were. Hi, where are you?
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, huh? And your name?
Cynthia.
Okay, Cynthia.
And I listen on 1190 KEX.
The mighty KEX in Portland, of course.
Well, I have kind of a spooky story.
Okay, you're going to have to speak up good and loud.
Hi. Okay. I attended U of O about 20 years ago.
Right.
And I lived in this beautiful sorority. It's the oldest on campus. It's historically registered. It's a big old brick timber Tudor with a tower and many nooks and crannies.
Beautiful. Sounds beautiful.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and it never seemed spooky to me living there because it was always full of lively women and music. And
Oh, we all know from having seen all the ghost stories in the world that lots of things happen in girls' dorms.
Well, one spring break, they always close up the sororities during spring break. You can't stay there during the break. But I had a flight that didn't leave till...
Wait a minute, what kind of attitude is that? I mean, you're going to go off and spring break it, right? And they won't even let you in the dorm where you'd be cool.
I think it's a financial issue.
I see. All right.
But I had a flight the following day after they were closing up the house, and I was going to get a hotel. But I had a good relationship with our house mother, and she said she'd kind of break the rules and let me stay there.
Uh-huh.
So I stayed in this huge sorority all by myself one evening.
Creepy enough, huh?
And I'm guessing it's about 10 to 12,000 square feet. Huge building. It's 3 stories with a full attic, a basement.
Right.
About 40 bedrooms. And my floor was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the mill race. It's this river that runs through campus, kind of up in the trees. And my room had a bed that was built up, kind of built in. It was about 4 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And the ceilings were really low also. Very cozy room. And I had this bank of windows I could look out to. And there was a moon that evening. And I read a book and cuddled into bed and fell asleep. I didn't think anything of being completely alone in this huge building. And I was sound asleep and something absolutely jarred me awake. I mean, just almost like someone grabbed your shirt and pulled you up.
Uh-huh.
And it's like the atmosphere had changed. It's like the room had the air just sucked out of it.
Yes, when these things begin to happen, not only had you been awake enough, you would have felt it prior to the beginning. There would have been a sort of a foreshock of feeling. But then when the incident is underway, it's big time.
Well, it happened so fast, and I was wide awake. My
Yes.
adrenaline had just dumped into my system. And I was just laying there going, oh, my gosh, what's happening? And remember I said it was a moonlit night.
Oh, yes.
And it was a little bit windy. And I started seeing these little wispy, shadowy figures hovering around the ceiling, kind of going in a circular pattern.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like 4-inch wispy, I don't know what they were, demon things.
Yeah.
I was very scared. The room got very cold. And the room slowly filled up with these things. They were whirling over my head, making this shoo, shoo sound.
Oh, brother.
I was terrified because all of a sudden it really hit me that I'm alone in this huge, huge building. With
Yeah, and
no
when
one...
you're in a dorm, nobody hears you scream.
Well, this is a huge house, separate from everything.
Uh-huh.
And while this is happening, the phone starts ringing way, way down the hall. It's probably 10 bedrooms away. There's this little tiny closet with one phone for the whole floor.
Yes.
It's ringing and ringing and ringing. I'm too scared to get up and get it. Who would be calling? It's about 3 o'clock in the morning because I looked at my clock. And I had just finished a book called Satan's Cellar. It's actually a Christian book. So maybe that opened the door, but it's a Christian book. And I was recently baptized, get this, at Applegate Christian Fellowship, where this other guy that just called in lives.
Yes.
I was a new Christian, and this book was about a young boy who was raised in a very Christian family, very goody two-shoes his whole life, and when he was a teenager, he really rebelled and ended up getting into Satanism, and how he reverts back into Christianity.
So, you see, your mind was in that set.
It could be, but in
it could easily be.
this book, one thing I really remembered is it had the prayer that you're supposed to say if you feel evil or demon after you, and it's Satan, get thee behind me. And I said that.
Satan, get thee behind me?
Yes.
Ah.
And Art, the room cleared instantly. It's like the air got sucked back in. It got warm, and
the event was over.
And I was completely at peace. The phone had stopped ringing, and I was just warm and cozy, and I said another prayer just to keep me safe, and I had one of the best sleeps of my life that night.
All right, got it. Thank you very, very much. You see, it just does not surprise me. She had just finished a book, though it be a Christian book, on the subject, of the devil. And so that was on her mind. And I think one other thing that's clearly coming out of this program tonight is that you don't need an object. You don't need any sort of accoutrements. You don't need anything to get to the other side except your mind. And if you focus your mind on bridging that little gap, you bridge it all right. Now, what walks through, that's an entirely different situation, but you bridge it. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Hi.
Hi, Art. How are you?
I'm all right. What is your first name?
Steve.
Steve.
Boise, Idaho.
All right, Steve. Welcome.
I'd like to. Well, thank you for taking my call, by the way.
Yes.
I'd like to tell you a story. My old grandparents, great grandparents, they used to own a mine up near Grimes Creek, which is near Idaho City, up in Idaho.
Is that a gold or silver mine or what?
It's a gold mine.
Gold mine.
It's an old gold mine. Idaho City is an old gold mining town.
Right.
Anyways, long story short, my great grandfather and his brother owned a mining company, and the mine they sold all of them but one, and we kept one in our family. And I'd been hearing stories and stories and stories about the mine and how much gold was still up there, and they never mined it because it wasn't profitable for them, because they would have had to pay the workers and everything.
Sure.
And I went up there one day, and I got a map and went up to the roads above Grimes Pass, which is where the mine is, and I stopped in to check it out. And I happened to walk in the mine, and I looked across the creek, and there was like this old, I don't know how to describe it, a Victorian-style house. It was about 3 stories tall, just a beautiful, beautiful, almost like farmhouse. And I thought, that's really a neat house, and it didn't look like it had been dilapidated at all. And so I took my little flashlight and I went into the mine, and as I walked in, I found a set of old mining tools, like a hand drill and a pickaxe and like a pan also.
Okay.
And so I walked back into the mine, and I walked back into the mine, and I stopped, and I was like, gee, I wonder where the gold is, and I'm looking around, and I can't find it. And so I start drilling into the wall with these old tools. And a gentleman dressed in a business suit and a top hat, almost like 1890s, 1900s era, comes, and he looks at me and he says, "You're doing that wrong, son."
You're kidding.
No, I said, "Excuse me?" And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, where did this guy come from?
Yeah.
And I say, "Okay, what's the right way?"
How about who are you and what are you doing here?
Well, it didn't even cross my mind.
All right.
I guess I had what you would call gold fever, if that makes sense.
He was going to show you how to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, it does make sense. Humans have an unnatural attraction to gold. All humans do.
It's bizarre how much gold will affect people.
You're correct.
So, anyways, he comes over without missing a beat, and he takes the tools out of my hand, and he grabs my hand, and he walks me down to the edge of this mine shaft, and he sinks the pickaxe into the wall, and he starts drilling, and he's like, "Okay, the rest is up to you." And I said, "Okay, thanks for your..." And I turned around, and he was gone. The guy had just disappeared, and so I sunk my pickaxe in there, and sure enough, out popped a nugget. And
he took you right to it.
Right to it. And so I ended up walking out. And as I happened to go back to the car when I was all done and everything, and I'd gotten about 3 good-sized nuggets, I happened to look over, and the house wasn't there anymore. The house had been...
The house was gone?
The house was gone.
Wow.
It had almost disappeared, but out front there was still this old hitching post. And I walked over to the hitching post, and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And I looked on the hitching post, and it had Wells, which was the name of my great-great-grandfather. That was his last name.
Right.
Inscribed on the post. And so I don't wonder if maybe my great-grandfather came back to give me some mining tips.
My God, the power, though. That's really a cool story. Really a cool story. Thank you.
Thank you,
Art. Right, take care. That's really a cool story. what if the entity on the other side, the relative, has enough power to not just manifest himself, but manifest an entire setting that this man would see? A home, an old ranch house that's not there anymore, that wasn't really there in the first place, along with himself in period dress and all the rest of it, taking him right to the gold. That's quite a bit of power. That's a lot of power. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Good morning, Art.
Good morning. Your name?
My name is Terry, and I'm calling from Topeka, Kansas, and I'm listening to you on KMHA AM.
That's the way to do it, Terry. Thanks. What's up?
Well, I had a little ghost story for you, but it's not as scary as the others, but it's very true, and it concerns my grandmother.
Very true is all that counts. I want people to understand that there is something after this life, that there really is. It may or may not be to our liking, but it ain't all over when it seems it's all over.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yes. So proceed.
Well, I was entering high school one year, and when my grandmother died, and, well, let me jump ahead here because I know you don't have that much time. Anyway, I was in a car wreck, and a girlfriend of mine and I went to Lawrence, Kansas to do some shopping. And on our way back from Lawrence, we were about 5 minutes outside of Lawrence when I decided, I had realized that I hadn't had my seatbelt on in the car. And so anyway, I had just made a conscious thought that I wasn't going to put it on because we'd be home in about 20 minutes, and I wanted to go through all the packages of everything that I had bought that day. So anyway, I'm going through all my packages and looking at everything that I bought, and then a few minutes later down the road, all of us were coming up alongside a truck, a large truck that was just directly ahead of us. And anyway, so I'm sitting there looking at my things, and all of a sudden I hear a voice, and my grandmother had been dead for about 10 years when this happened.
Yes.
Anyway, all of a sudden I heard my grandmother's voice, and she yelled at me in my left ear, and she said, "For God's sakes, Terry, you have to put your seatbelt on now." And I just went, and I looked up at my friend, and she was just listening to the radio, and she obviously hadn't heard it. And I said, "Oh, my God, Donna, did you hear that?" And she said, "No, what?" And I said, "Oh, nothing." I said, "I've just got to put my seatbelt on." So I put my seatbelt on, and within 2 minutes, all of a sudden we hear this explosion, and this truck next to us had a blowout, and it was a huge truck, and so it just starts throwing debris in front of us and everything, and my friend screams and puts her hands up to her face, and I'm like, "Donna, just calm down, take your hands off your face, put them back on the steering wheel, and drive." And I told her to slow down. So she was just scared. And so anyway, she starts slowing down. Well, this truck, because it had a blowout, it tries to slow down as well.
Yep.
So we're caught. And so anyway, this truck suddenly starts swerving back and forth, and I know it's going to fall on us pretty soon because he was doing about 70 miles an hour, and we were doing about 65. And so anyway, she slows down, and this truck starts swerving, and he's going to drop at any minute, and you can tell. And so I just told her to floor it. So she floors it, and we get right about to where he's about right across from the passenger seat where I'm sitting.
Yes.
And suddenly he just jackknifes around and slams into us.
Oh, my God.
It was horrible. And anyway, he throws us into that center median, those cement block things, those dividers.
Sure.
He throws us into it, and then we go into a spin end to end, and then we hit one of the openings down the road a little ways, and when we hit it, it throws us back out into the front of this truck.
Holy smokes.
It was horrible.
Yeah, that's a big wreck.
It was. And as soon as he hits us the second time, we immediately flip over his hood, and he just really slammed into us this time.
Good God.
And we were airborne, and all I can remember are about 2 flips in the air,
Yes.
And, well, we were told later that we flipped 5 times in the air before we hit the ground. And
holy smokes.
It was a terrible car wreck.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we land, and we land upside down on the roof of the car. And she's okay, and I'm suspended in midair by my seatbelt, and it's strangling me, and I can't breathe. And so I'm trying to get this seatbelt off of my neck, and my right arm, though, which I was holding on to the little hand thing up on top as we were flipping, my hand was just crushed underneath the metal, and I couldn't see it. But all I could see was blood coming down, and my head is laying in the glass from the rear windshield. And all of a sudden, this man comes up. You know, these people just rush up to our car.
Yes.
And, you know, are really concerned, and they want to help us. A man and woman go to my friend's side of the car, and then this other gentleman comes to my side. And I'm just really upset, and I'm scared, and he grabs my arm, and he just starts stroking my arm, and he tells me to focus on his voice. And I said, how can I do this? I'm strangling. I can't breathe.
Yeah.
And anyway, and I'm just entombed inside this metal. And I can just barely see my friend through all the metal. And anyway, he just tells me to calm down and listen to his voice and focus on him.
Uh-huh.
So I did this, and he just talked constantly. And he told me that when the truck hit us the first time, he had immediately called 911, and so they were on their way out. So anyway, he said just to hang on. Well, they tried to get us out of the car, and they couldn't get us out.
Not a lot of time left, hon.
Okay, anyway, so finally the paramedics get there, and the highway patrol, they get us out of the car. And I'm looking for this man because I want to thank him.
Of course.
And so I'm looking around at all these people, and I see one man standing while the others are kneeling around us. And I look up at him, and I just thought, oh my God! And I look at him and I said, has anybody ever told you that you look just like Jack Palance? And he just threw his head back and laughed, and then he leaned down and grabbed my face with his hands, and he said, I am, honey, but that's not important now. The important thing is that you're alive and you're going to be okay.
Oh, what a story!
All I could think to say.
Listen, hon, I've got to go. What a whale of a story. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Oh, good night. This is Ghost to Ghost AM.
Don't you need her badly? Don't you love her ways? Tell me what you say. Don't you love her badly? Wanna be her daddy? Don't you love her face? Don't you love her as she's walking out the door? Like she did 1,000 times before. Don't you love her ways? Tell me what you say. Don't you love her as she's walking out the door? All your love, all your love, all your love, all your love is gone. To sing a lonely song of a new dream. 7 horses seem to be on the mark.
Call Art Bell in the Kingdom of Nye from west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at 1-775-727-1222. And the wildcard line is open at 1-775-727-1295. To reach Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell from the Kingdom of Nye.
From the high desert town of Pahrump, Nevada. In fact, this is Ghost to Ghost AM. I'm Art Bell, and we're hour number 5 right now on this morning. It's good morning to do 5 hours, isn't it? Tim That's a very interesting fast blast from Tim in Los Angeles, who says, Art, I'll never, ever, ever listen to Ghost to Ghost again. Never. I was driving home listening to your show, and I saw a ghost floating. I swerved, nearly hit a cop car. The cop saw what I saw, asked if I was okay, and told me to go home. Yeah, Tim. Well, I never said that listening to this program wasn't a conduit for something to happen to you. It didn't come with that guarantee, Tim. In fact, we may be as much of a focus and an open door as any you might create. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, how's it going, Art?
It's going okay, sir. What's up?
All righty, I'm Michael. I'm calling from Pueblo in the Rocky Mountains. I'd like to start out saying, yes, you're very correct, as Ouija boards are channels.
Oh, sure.
Little tools that are used for harnessing the mind.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I'd like to start out, I was in Boone, Colorado. It's a small town. My friend lived with his parents, and he had a brother, and they had another trailer by this pre-established house that was there.
Uh-huh.
And he got to move into this house, and I was with him, and we were setting up an entertainment center in front of a big picture window because we didn't have any other place to put it. And we heard a growl on the other side of the window. We were like, oh, yeah. What was that, And I jumped on the couch. I was like, and he said, well, I heard it too. We took it as a coyote or something. So the next day, we were talking to his brother about it, and his brother started going on about, when they first moved there, he saw a ghost outside of the house walking with a limp. Or not a ghost, a person, actually. It wasn't transparent or anything. So he grabbed his father's 22 and went out front, and he had a dog named King and always barked at anything. And it was just sitting there, nothing going on at all. So he went back in. While he was telling us this, he got up and he described the limp. And about at that same time, we heard an intense, it started out small from the back rooms of the house.
Yes.
And it, moved up to the living room, and it got very, very intense and very, very loud.
What noise? What are you talking about?
It was almost about the same growl we heard the night before, but very loud.
Yes.
And the house was on, and it scared us so bad that we had so much adrenaline that we just sat there. We didn't even move for almost an hour.
And that's how young people react. Older people have heart attacks and die.
All three of us.
Yeah.
And about 2 hours later, then it come about dawn. We're still sitting there trying to contemplate what just happened. And his dad came in the kitchen, and he almost shot his dad with a gun because he was so scared. And then we got out of the house then that morning, and we were walking in the fields. We went back in, got enough guts. We went down the cellar or the attic where we think this noise went.
The cellar or the attic, which?
I mean, not the attic, the cellar. My bad. And it's a little teeny, 10-foot by 10-foot area down in there.
How old were you when you did this?
I was 19.
19, and must have been really stupid. I mean, because then you're going to go down into a basement and down to a little confined space in a haunted house where something had just growled at you and kept you there all night long.
Well, inside of there, we figured it, since it's dawn, it should be okay. Well, I don't know, but there was a small window right there in the attic, or the cellar, that went to straight dirt.
Okay, well, cut to the chase. What happened?
Well, that's about it.
So
it never bothered us again, but it was a very intense experience.
Yes, well, and intensely, in my opinion, no reflection on you, sir, idiotic. I mean, something that evil, that bad, something growling at you and keeps you there all night long, and you go back and go down into the basement? Please. Maybe at 19. Wild Card Line, you're on the air. Hello.
This is Stephanie in Federal Way.
Hello, Stephanie.
Yeah, this happened to me. It would be New Year's Eve, 79 into 80.
All right.
And I had been living in a communal house, and the guy who owned the house and his girlfriend were, I lived a sheltered life, and they were into what I've later found to be black arts.
Oh.
And they were talking about, becoming possessed so that they could get power. And I eventually moved out of the house and was dating the guy's brother.
Really?
He went, yeah, and it was going along because he moved out of the house too.
People like that do sacrifices and terrible stuff like that. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't then. I am now. I'm.
You could have been the virgin sacrifice of the day had you stayed.
Well, that's kind of why I left, because it was just too bizarre. And we were going over there kind of to do the family, hi, it's New Year's, thank you for inviting us to your party, but, you know, we're just making our appearance and then going home. And I remember that they had this strange print of, it looked like a fairy woman, but she had Stonehenge reflecting out of one eye. She was wearing a pentagram necklace and some other things that I've since learned were symbols of the black arts.
Right.
Well, we get up and we're walking up the porch to the house. They've got a raging fire in a fireplace. I know the house is warm when you open the door. Well, his girlfriend opens the door to greet us, and something ice cold that felt just like a knife stabbed right through my chest. It was probably about 6 inches wide, you know, from top to bottom.
Yes.
And about a half an inch wide, thick of the blade. And I felt it go in through the front and come out through the back.
Something seen or something unseen but felt?
Unseen but felt.
Gotcha.
And it was just ice cold. I mean, I've never felt, it was like dry ice cold.
Yeah.
And needless to say, I did not walk into that house, 19 or otherwise. I turned on my foot and I just took off running.
Now there is a rational reaction.
And I have never been a distance runner in my life. I've never been a sprinter. I ran 5 miles that night.
Covered a lot of territory real quick.
And it turns out they still don't know exactly what happened, but within a month, my boyfriend's brother committed suicide in that house within a month after this party, and within 2 days after that, his girlfriend committed suicide.
Wow.
And to this day, when this happened in Portland, Oregon, and to this day, if I'm anywhere near the street that this house is on, I just get nauseous.
Give it good, wide berth.
And, you know, I just say that there was something there that told me not to go in, did not want me in there.
Well, you reacted rationally, unlike my previous caller, and yes. I appreciate your call. Thank you. That was rational. That's what I would do. Out of there, cover as much distance as quickly as possible. Now, I don't mean to be too hard on that caller. He was 19 and hadn't built up, obviously, a lot of brilliance yet. But, I mean, after being pinned down by a growl all night long, are you going back there? And are you going to the basement? And are you going to a little tiny area in the basement? Well, I guess. Maybe at 19. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey there.
Hey there.
How you doing, Art?
Okay, where are you?
Oh, I'm actually out in Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, okay.
Okay. First, to give you a setting of it was really, really weird. I know I was pretty foolish to go through with this, but I spent a few years out in Nagoya, Japan. That's on the mainland of Japan.
Indeed.
And there's this notorious spot. And ever since I was a little kid, I've always been kind of curious about, like, you know, to see little haunted places and, you know, experience, you know, see if I could actually experience something.
Yes.
So throughout the whole country, there's this spot. It's named Aokigahara Jukai. It's at the foot, at the foot of, like, Mount Fuji. It's called in English translation, it's the Sea of Trees.
Yes.
And it's known as basically like a suicide spot throughout the whole entire country.
There we go again. Yes.
People basically wander in and they never come out. Because of the volcanic rock or whatever, even with a compass, you can't find your way in or out. So it's like highly recommended by the government. They even have signs like posted within the
suicide
trees.
Suicide has been developed to a fine art by the Japanese.
Well, I can imagine, because supposedly it's been back from when we were at war with them.
Anyway, I don't have a whole lot of time here, so what happened?
Well, anyways, I somehow talked the person that I was with into, when we made our trip to Mount Fuji, to taking me to the forest. So we went ahead against her wishes, and so we started walking in. We walked. It basically looked identical. Everything looked basically the same because it was like the same type of trees and everything. And I made sure that I wouldn't get myself lost. So we got ourselves to a point, and I saw somebody run by the trees, and so did she. It was a male. He was about probably in his mid-20s or whatever. And we were both pretty shocked because there was nobody goes there. I mean, this poor young lady, I had her shaking. She was really scared to go up in there. Anyways, I said, "Look at that." And she said, "I seen it," and she was just trembling. I said, "Hey." And I ran to the trees where he was. And as soon as I got there was blood all over this tree. And there was a piece of rope, and it looked like it had been ripped, or somehow it was like mangled.
Well, you were in the forest of the dead.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Actually, the police go in there only once a year to get the people that have killed themselves, because they get lost themselves. They have to actually mark the trees.
Yes, what this man says is true. It might not seem it, but in Japan, suicide. And so, with what we've heard about suicide tonight, what you've told me is no surprise. That would be an intensely haunted area. The people who commit suicide don't really leave,
Well, the feeling I was looking for, I think I actually experienced it. Anyways, I looked on the tree. There was actually like a little straw. It was made out of straws. It was a cross, and it was pinned right onto that exact tree where I seen the person running, where we actually saw the person running.
Yes.
And there was I don't read Japanese myself, but she translated it, and it was basically he had written his death note on the tree.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got up to, I yanked her over there to see it, and it's basically about 5 or 10 seconds later of just standing there in shock. Raindrops. It wasn't even really a gloomy day, but it was almost nighttime, so it was kind of dark. I'm sure you could kind of get the picture of how it would look in a forest.
Yes, just a moment left.
Okay. The raindrops started hitting in like a 10-feet circle just around us only. And she fell to her knees, and I had to actually pick her up, and we got the blank house there.
Well, of course, another totally rational reaction. Thank you very much. In the forest of the dead in Japan, where the attitude about death and dying and religion and everything, for that matter, is so different that it's hard to contemplate here. On the international line, you're on the air with Ghost to Ghost AM. Hello.
Hi, this is Nancy.
Hello, Nancy. Where are you?
I'm in Germany.
Germany. What part? What part?
In Bavaria.
Bavaria. Okay, Nancy. What's up?
Well, I have a ghost story from the early 70s when my husband and I had bought a great big house. And he was a policeman and usually worked at night. And even on the nights when he was home, strange things would happen, but he never seemed to notice any of this. And it started when lights were flipping on and off, and I thought my young son, who was about 3 or 4, was getting up at night and leaving the lights on, so I thought I would try and trick this ghost and pretend like I was going to sleep and see if it was my son or what was happening. So one night I probably fell asleep for a nanosecond, and the lights went on. So I ran out in the hallway to see if it was my son, and then there was knocking on the window. So I ran and jumped back in bed, and my brother used to babysit in that house, and he said the handles on the dresser used to flip, and so he stopped babysitting. One night I was downstairs ironing, watching TV.
Yes.
And, sometimes you can, when someone walks in the door, you can feel, if you're not looking, you can feel somebody came into the room. So I thought my husband had had come home and he was trying to scare me, and I turned around and I saw this extremely huge, I mean, it was like, he was so big, this man, and I just saw it for just a second.
Yes.
Like he was dressed like with a short skirt kind of, whatever that's called.
A kilt?
Yeah.
A kilt.
And a thing going across his chest. And he was just huge. And I said, this is my imagination. I turned around and I started to iron again.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I felt a spot in the back of my back.
Yes.
Like it was a hot poker.
Right.
And the hot started to spread out in a circle across my back. And I jumped up and I said, okay, but you have to stay downstairs. I'll go upstairs. You stay downstairs. And I ran upstairs and locked the door. Of course, that's not going to do anything, but, you know.
That's all right. It's rational. It's what I'd do. Lock it anyway. Sure, it can walk right through and munch on you, but lock it anyway.
And then it finally, this happened like about the first 2 or 3 months we had moved into this house.
Yes.
And my husband, you know, thought I was nuts. He just wouldn't even listen. And so I used to teach catechism. And so the last time, I had all these papers spread out on this big dining room table, and there was a big chandelier above it. And all of a sudden, the table started to shake. And I thought, oh, no, because it was in California. I thought, oh, no, we're having an earthquake. And I looked under the table, and the cat was sound asleep. He hadn't moved. And I looked at the chandelier, and it was still. And my left arm started to flop all over. And I'm right-handed. And so I just leaned back in the chair, and I just said, look, Ghost, I don't have time to play. And very slowly the table, you know, stopped shaking, and
yes.
I never heard from him again.
And it sounds like you left California by a long way. You're in Germany.
Yeah, well, then I moved to Washington, and I think he followed me there, but it wasn't ever as bad as that time.
How's Halloween in Bavaria?
Actually, it's
not a big holiday there?
No, but today is a holiday.
Ah.
Everything shuts down. Today being November 1st, it's, I can't remember what they call it. It's kind of like our All Saints Day. And it's, it's a very Catholic area, and nothing is open. Usually they have flea markets on the first Saturday of the month. Nothing happens.
Well, I guess when you're in Bavaria, every day is Halloween anyway. Listen, bless your heart for calling. Wonderful story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night from the homeland here. Well, all right, folks, that does it. That's Ghost to Ghost AM, 5 hours worth. It's been my pleasure. As it will be every year, I have an opportunity to do it for you. One thing it should have done is to have caused you to stop for a moment and think, as you listen to some of these obviously true stories, there's got to be something more. From the high desert, good night.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never meaning to send. Beauty I'd